There's something deeply disturbing about being watched, especially when you don't know who's watching you, or why. Tonight's stories are all about stalkers. Not the kind you see in movies. I'm talking about the ones that blend into everyday life. The ones that wait. The ones that follow. The ones who never say a word, but you can feel them. These stories were shared with me as real experiences. Whether you believe them or not, that's up to you. But if you've ever had that feeling that someone was standing just out of sight, you're not alone. Story 1. I think I was followed home from a gas station in Utah. My name is Kieran, and I live in Utah, not far from Provo. This happened about 4 years ago, but it still creeps me out every time I think about it. It started on a random Tuesday night. I had just gotten off work late and stopped at a gas station about 20 minutes from home. It was one of those 24-hour places just off the highway, always half-lit and weirdly empty. I went inside, grabbed a soda and a bag of chips, and noticed a guy standing by the energy drinks fridge. He was tall, wearing a baseball cap pulled low, and a jacket that looked too heavy for the season. He didn't buy anything. He just stood there, then turned and stared at me. At first, I thought nothing of it. I paid for my stuff, got back in my car, and drove off. But in my rearview mirror, I saw a dark sedan pull out of the gas station right after me. That part of Utah has a lot of long, empty stretches of road, and I live down one of those. The sedan stayed behind me for every single turn, for over 20 minutes. I started getting nervous when I turned into the rural road near my place, a road that barely anyone uses at that hour. The car was still behind me, lights dimmed. I did a small test. I missed my turn on purpose and kept going. The sedan did too. I pulled into a grocery store parking lot. It was closed, obviously, but well lit. The sedan drove by slowly, then parked across the street and just sat there. Engine running. Lights off. I waited 15 minutes in my car, pretending to scroll my phone. When I finally started driving again, the sedan didn't follow me this time. I took a longer route home and made sure I wasn't being followed anymore before pulling into my driveway. But here's the part that really freaked me out. 2 nights later, around 2 a.m., I was home alone. I live in a small house on the edge of a wooded area, and my dog started barking like crazy. He never barks like that unless something's off. I looked through the kitchen window and saw someone standing at the tree line, barely visible under the moonlight. Same build. Same jacket. Just staring at the house. I called the police. They showed up about 20 minutes later. Of course, the guy was gone by then. They found footprints near the trees but nothing else. They chalked it up to a trespasser and told me to install cameras. I did. Nothing ever came up on them, but for the next 2 months, every now and then, I'd hear something tapping on the back of the house at night. Always just once. Always around the same time, between 1 and 3 a.m. I never went back to that gas station again. That first story already gives you that unsettling feeling of being watched, but sometimes, the person watching doesn't just sit back. Sometimes, they get closer. Much closer. This next story is about someone who thought she was just being paranoid, until she realized she was being followed, for real. Story 2. He found me through a video I forgot I posted. My name is Brittany, and I used to run a small lifestyle channel on YouTube. Nothing big, just vlogs, beauty tips, that kind of stuff. I started it during the pandemic, mostly out of boredom. At some point, the channel picked up a bit of traction, and by late 2021, I had a few thousand followers. I was careful about what I shared. I never said my last name, never showed my house number, and I lived in a mid-sized city in Washington state, so I thought I was safe. I blurred out license plates, avoided anything that might give away my location. Or at least, I thought I did. It all started when someone with no profile picture commented on one of my older videos, something like, "You live near ____ park, right? I've seen that fence before." That comment was gone the next day. Deleted by the user, or maybe by YouTube, I don't know. But it unsettled me. I had no idea what they were talking about. I didn't even remember filming near a park. Still, I brushed it off. People make weird guesses all the time. Then came the DMs. My Instagram was linked to my channel. The same user, or at least, the same handle, messaged me with, "I think I saw you last Tuesday around 7 p.m. You were wearing a green hoodie." That freaked me out. I had been out that night, walking to a nearby gas station to grab snacks. I was wearing a green hoodie. It could have been coincidence. But still, I made my Instagram private right after. For the next week, nothing happened. Then, I noticed someone had left a message on my P.O. box, not a letter. A small square of paper taped to the inside of the box flap. All it said was, "I love how you smile when you're thinking. I watch you through the window." I nearly threw up. I lived alone in a second-floor apartment. The only way to see inside was from the parking lot, and the blinds were usually shut. But I couldn't remember if I had them open the night before. Suddenly I felt exposed in my own home. I reported it to the police, but there was nothing they could do. No fingerprints, no real threat, just an incredibly disturbing note. That's when I went back and reviewed every video I had ever posted. And I saw it. In a vlog from late 2020, I had done a day in my life and casually filmed a walk around my block. I didn't think much of it at the time. I was just talking about my routine and showing the fall colors. But in one part, the camera pans across a street sign. It wasn't even in focus. But it was there, you could make out the street name. That was all someone needed. I took down the video. Then I privated the entire channel. But it didn't stop. A few days later, I came home from work and saw something taped to my door. It was a blurry printout of my own face, a screenshot from one of my vlogs. The caption under it read, "You can delete videos. You can't delete what I already saved." That night, I stayed at a friend's house and never went back to that apartment. I broke my lease and moved out a month later. I changed my number. Deleted all social media. The channel is gone. Everything's gone. To this day, I have no idea who it was, or if they still follow me somehow. But I can't even bring myself to take selfies anymore, let alone record anything. Because someone out there watched every second I ever posted, and used it against me. But as creepy as those stories were, this next one will really make you think twice about who you sit near on public transportation. Because when someone starts following you, not just with their eyes, but in real life, there's a different kind of fear that settles in. Story 3. He was on the bus. And then, he was on my street. My name is Lydia, and this happened in 2018, when I was 22 years old. I lived with my mom in a small town, and every day I would take the bus to work in a neighboring city. The ride took about 50 minutes, so I usually just put in my earbuds, stare out the window, and zoned out. Most of the time, it was the same group of people on that bus, elderly folks, a few students, some people commuting to work. But one day, a man I'd never seen before got on. He looked to be in his 30s, wore dark sunglasses, carried an old backpack, and walked with this weird stiffness. He sat in the seat directly behind me, even though the bus was mostly empty. I didn't think much of it, until I felt him lightly touching my hair. Very subtly, like the kind of touch where you're not even sure if it really happened. I adjusted my seat, pulled up my hood, and didn't look back. The next day, he was there again. Same bus. Same time. Same seat behind me. This time, I sat closer to the front near the driver. But the guy followed me with his eyes the entire ride. When I got off the bus, he got off too, even though he didn't seem to know where he was going. He just stood there, staring. That's when I started to feel uneasy. On the third day, he boarded last and sat at the front. But instead of facing forward, he angled his body to look down the aisle, directly at me. Every time I glanced up, he was watching. And he'd smile. Not a warm smile. More like a vacant, disconnected grin. At work that day, I told the receptionist, She joked that maybe I had a secret admirer, but when she saw the look on my face, her tone changed. She suggested I take a different bus for a few days, but there was only one line that went my route. The following week, he kept showing up. But something had shifted. He stopped staring at me on the bus. Instead, I started seeing him around where I worked. First across the street, just standing still. Then pretending to browse store windows. One day, he slowly walked past the front of the office, peering inside. I went to the police. They filed a report, but said that technically, he hadn't done anything illegal. But I knew. I knew it wasn't random. It wasn't in my head. Then came the night that really messed me up. It was almost 9 p.m., and I had just gotten off the bus near my neighborhood. The street was empty. My mom usually picked me up, but she had been running late that day. So I started walking quickly, alert, checking my surroundings. And that's when I heard the footsteps. Behind me. Slow. Steady. I turned around and froze. It was him. Same backpack. Same sunglasses, even at night. He was just standing there, a few yards back, watching me. And smiling. That same eerie, calm smile, like he thought this whole thing was completely normal. I ran. I turned down the first side street, then another. I didn't stop until I reached my house. I banged on the gate until my mom opened it, and I burst in, crying, panicked, trying to explain. She called the police. They drove around, looked for him, but found nothing. After that, I stopped taking the bus. I moved to another city, stayed with an aunt for a few months. I never saw him again. But sometimes, when I'm alone, and I hear footsteps behind me, my whole body tenses up. Because it's not just the fear of seeing him again. It's the fear that maybe he never really left. Whether it's a stranger on the bus, a shadow behind a camera, or something hiding inside your own home, one thing's clear: some people don't just watch. They follow. And sometimes, they don't stop. Thanks for watching. If you've ever experienced something similar, drop it in the comments. And remember, if your gut tells you something's wrong, it probably is.